Good morning. So I am back here at this 8-bedroom HMO and I'm going to start cracking on with some work today. That's better. Going to start cracking on with some work today. So we've got these en-suites to wire up in order to not hold up the builders. So that was a central light. What I'm going to do is basically reconfigure the wiring up in the loft, put a couple of recessed downlights in here. So I'm just going to cut the holes and wire them up. I'm not going to fit the lights yet. Take that old fan out, check the wiring, and we'll fit a new fan if that's okay. And then that's about it really in here. We just need to put a switch on the outside. So going to put a light switch here for the bathroom, a light switch here for the bedroom, and a fan isolator up here. So that's this side. Then the other side, we've got exactly the same kind of scenario, except there's already a switch here. So we're just going to leave that where it is. Probably just put a new switch on. And then we need to put a fan isolator up here somewhere. So it's a plasterboard wall, so we can just put a plasterboard box in and wire that up. The builders have cut a 4-inch hole in the wall with a pipe, so all we need to do is chase down there, put a 3/4 earth cable in for the fan, wire it to the isolator. Going to tidy these cables up a little bit for the existing switch, and then same kind of thing, 2 recessed down lights in the ceiling here. So that will get the builders out of trouble and then they can crack on in here. Then we've got a bit of stud wall open here as well where we need to put the light switches, because this used to be one room. So it has 2 light fittings, but it was 1 room. And now we are changing it to 2 rooms. You can see the doorway there that's been put in the stud wall. So we need to basically move this switch so that we've got 1 switch here for this room and another switch here for this room. And then relocate the lights to the center of the room. Although it's a bit annoying because they've Artexed around them, so I'll check with the builder, maybe he just wants us to leave them there. There's also these old pull switches that we need to get rid of. So just going to disconnect those, tidy up all the wiring in the loft. And then I'm going to start looking into the smoke alarm wiring, getting in the 3 cores between the smoke alarms and getting all that wired up. So plenty to be getting on with. Let's go. So I'm just stripping this old switch cable out because it's damaged, and interesting the way they've clipped the cables down there. Just a nail in between the 2 twin and earth cables. No capping, nothing. Not great. So I'm busy prepping for the smoke alarm installation, and as you can see there's a light just hanging down here with 1 cable in. So I thought I'll just have a look up above in the loft to see what the situation is, because I need to get a permanent light from somewhere for the smoke alarms. And this is what I found. So up here, can you see this? This is a very old school junction box. So there is a permanent light here, which is good, but definitely going to need to redo this junction box. I'll flip the camera around and you can see a close-up. So this is it. It's a BL calendars, I think. BL calendars junction box. Looks like we've got 2 singles cables coming into it, twin and earth going to the light fitting, and another twin and earth which goes into the bottom of this loft light switch. If we flip it over, yeah, I suppose it's designed to be fixed to a joist or something, but in this case it's not. And of course it can just be opened by hand without the use of a tool, so I can just unscrew the lid and we'll have a look at the contacts inside. So it's quite a neat little junction box, really, considering how old it is. I mean, that's got to be about 40-50 years old probably, so you know, fair play to them. They made a nice bit of kit back in the day, but it needs a bit of an upgrade. So I'm going to be replacing this with an ideal junction box. Is it just me, or does every electrician have this, where you just, the deeper you start looking into a job, the worse it gets, and it's like opening a can of worms? Basically, I'm busy redoing this junction box, but I realise that there's no permanent live here. It's just switch live neutral, and there's some singles going off, and then a funny switch here. So I thought, okay, I'll find where the singles go. So I've traced those singles, they come up here, and then they go along here to this junction box. So I thought, okay, let's have a look inside this junction box. And well, looks like a bit of a mess already, doesn't it? But wait till you get the lid off. Ah, lovely. So we've got here some VIR, vulcanized Indian rubber singles. Some people call them VRI, vulcanized rubber insulated. But basically they are not really allowed to be left in service anymore. They're very old and they're subject to a massive amount of deterioration. But this whole junction box is just like a big mess, to be honest. So basically those go down to the switch. It's just the permanent live terminal here goes down to the switch, and then switch live comes back up and goes to that junction box that I just showed you. Then this is the neutral, which you've got a red conductor going into the neutral terminal with no identification. The earths are all a big mess, so I'm going to have to redo this junction box. It's going to be easier just to start from scratch with a lot of this wiring, to be honest, because it's a bit of a mess. Like, it goes from that junction box to here, which is the fan isolator, which then goes to another junction box here, which spurs off to the fan that way, and then this way it's spurred off to this cable, which was for a pull switch for that fan. Then there's another junction box over there which does something else that I've got to figure out. There's loads of pull switches in all the bedrooms, and the wiring is just a bit of a mess, to be honest, so I'm gonna have to try and sort it all out. But yeah, seems like every job I do is like this. It's just like opening a can of worms and you end up like almost rewiring the whole house. It's just ridiculous. So I've attached the 3-core for the fan onto this old twin and earth, and hopefully if I pull on this, there we go, should pull up my new 3-core. There we go. So that is for the fan in one of the bathrooms. I just taped it onto the old cable, so that gets us up here, because under here is a flat roof, so this loft space only goes a certain way, and then above those two en-suites unfortunately is a flat roof, but there is space in between the joists. If you can see there's a gap, so there's just insulation and then joists going lengthways, so I'm able to just fish the cables along like that, which means it's not too difficult, thankfully. But yeah, there's going to be quite a lot of fishing to do for those bathroom cables. So in situations like this where you've got a junction box with loads of messy cables, then what I find easiest is just to disconnect one by one the cables that you don't need anymore. So we know that that one isn't needed anymore because that's the old switch cable for the bathroom, which we're going to redo. This one isn't needed anymore because it's the old fan from the bathroom, so we can get rid of that. This one is the old switch line for the hallway light, so we can get rid of that. This is the old neutral for the hallway light, so we can get rid of that. So we're already starting to minimise the number of cables in our junction box. Now, this is permanent live and neutral and earth going off to somewhere. So that could be feed in or it could be feed out. Still got 4 twin and earths and a couple of singles, so that's a neutral. No, that's a permanent live. Okay, but it's black, of course. Going off somewhere. And then all the rest of these cables are permanent live, neutral and earth, basically. So we can just cut all these off. And then we can redo these into a new junction box. Just got to remember that that one is live rather than neutral. And then these two vulcanized rubber switch cables, I'm going to have to try to redo them down to the switch, which is a bit annoying because it's a wallpapered wall. They've obviously just left them in when they rewired the house because they couldn't be bothered to chase out that wall and put in new cables. So now I've got to do it when it's much less convenient. Anyway, that gets rid of that mess. So we're getting there. So we've got these 4 twin and earths that we need to connect together. They're all permanent live, neutral and earth. And then this has got a permanent live. I'm going to trace this to find out where it goes. Hopefully I can get rid of it because I don't like singles. I never feel comfortable with them. I just think they are a bit confusing for people. Maybe that's just me. But I'm going to try and get rid of that if I can and just rewire it in twin and earth or something. Right, so what I've found is that this black cable is actually the permanent live for the loft lights. So we can pull that out. That's going around here, through here, over to that switch over there basically. So happily can get rid of that and just rewire. Yeah, it's that one. So we can just pull that out from the other side and rewire that switch. So we're getting there slowly, but it's a bit of a mess. So I've been struggling to shuffle around with my light, and then suddenly I had a genius idea. Good old uni light. The hook just is the right size to hook around a bayonet, so I took the lamp out and hung it up where the old light was, because obviously the power's off at the moment. So now I've got a nice light working area, which is great. Right, so I was trying to keep work to a minimum here, and I thought I'd reuse the wires from the switch that was here, but I took the switch off and it was a complete mess. So I decided, okay, I'll just pull out the old cables and pull new ones in on them. So that's what I'm going to do, but it's a bit tricky because there's an RSJ that goes across there, steel joist, and the cable's sort of tucked under there and then going over, so it's a bit tight. So I'm hoping that I can pull the new ones in without a problem. I'm just going to tie them onto these old ones and see. But I've got obviously a switch cable to go down to the light switch, and then I've got 2 3/4 to come down to the fan isolator, which need to come from that down like there. So it's 3 cables pulling in on 2. We'll see how I get on. So what I tend to do when I'm tying cables together to pull new ones through, I strip the wires right back like that, so you can get them as thin as possible, and then I bend them over so you've got like a little loop, and then I do the same with the other, link them together, and then put insulation tape round nice and tightly so that they are as small as possible when they're joining together, so there's not a little expansion that will get stuck. So I'm going to do that now and pull these two on one, and then I'm going to use the other one to pull the other three core through in a bit. So, end of the day, I feel like I've not done that much really, but I've got what I needed to do done anyway. So we've got this first fixed, so you've got switch for the bedroom, switch for the bathroom, fan isolator, and I've just used this oval conduit, just with some capping nails, fix that back to the wall. So that's all done and dusted. In here I've got the downlights wired. I've just tucked the wires up because the builders are going to plaster the ceiling, and then I'm going to fit them afterwards. But the cabling's all in for those, cables in for the fan as well. So that's this bathroom done. And then other bathroom, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. This, I decided to replace the switch box because the box was a bit dodgy. I've rewired the whole lot as well. Oh yeah, fan isolator up here, and then cables clipped up and along. Same for the downlights, 2 recessed downlights fitted, and fan first fixed. So that's all done here. I managed to get a bit of wiring in for some smoke alarms, so I put 3 smoke alarm points in. I've got the light switch, I put a noggin in here, and I've got the back box for the light switch in both bedrooms, and I've just clipped that up the wall there and drilled through into the loft. What else? Yeah, so switch this side, smoke alarm wired here, and I'm going to go from here into the hallway. I've drilled a hole for that one, so I've just, the wires, the cables in, I've just got to drop it down at both ends. Rewired that light there, but I've not put the light up yet. This is the switch that's got VIR for the switch wire, so I've got to replace this, but as it's wallpaper, I don't think the builders are going to want to have to plaster this wall, so I think I'm just going to put a surface box over here and then do surface mini trunking there. So that'll sort that out. I've drilled a couple of holes as well in the ceiling. You can just see I've drilled one hole there ready for cabling for the smoke alarm in this room, and I've done the same in this room, so that makes it a little bit easier just to run the cables when the holes are already there, when we know exactly where they've got to drop down. That's pretty much it, to be honest. So yeah, I don't feel like I've done that much for a whole day's work, but that's how it goes sometimes. I've got to pull this out as well. I nearly forgot. Yeah, sometimes it's like you spend a lot of time just faffing around. Like I spent ages in the loft just trying to figure out what was what with these lighting junction boxes and stuff, and that's just like wasted a lot of time. So it's one of those things, but at least now the builder's not held up, so they can crack on tomorrow, they can close those walls, start plastering, and I'm going to be back Tuesday to do the consumer unit change. Andy's going to be here with me, and he's going to start wiring the smoke alarms and carry on with the lighting up in the loft, just doing a few junction boxes and things like that. So yeah, and then we're here Wednesday as well next week, finishing the smoke alarms. We've got to do some stuff downstairs, so we've got to do the smoke alarms downstairs as well. That'll probably be a day's work. So yes, plenty to do still, but so far so good. One thing I forgot to say as well is I cleaned up after myself. At Artisan Electrics, we pride ourselves in always cleaning up after ourselves, and therefore that makes us the most expensive cleaners in the country, which is also something we're proud of. this tool here is called a domino. There, you see, I know what I'm talking about. No, seriously, we always clean up after ourselves because it shows pride in your work. So, yeah, that's to all the electricians who clean up after themselves.